Some truths hit like a slap in the face. Carl Jung had a way of saying things that didn't just challenge your thinking, they shattered your illusions. At first, his words can feel like an attack on everything you believe about yourself. But if you sit with them long enough, they start to reveal something deeper. They expose the unconscious fears, suppressed emotions, and self-deceptions you didn't even realize were running your life. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. That's where the discomfort begins. But it's also where freedom starts. Have you ever read something that instantly triggered you? Maybe a quote that made you defensive, angry, or just plain uncomfortable. That's a sign, not that the statement was wrong, but that it hit a nerve. The truth is, the things that bother us the most usually reveal something about our shadow, projections, and subconscious patterns. When Jung said, "What you resist persists," it felt unfair. Why should struggling against something make it stronger? When he said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves," it felt even worse, because that meant my frustrations weren't about them, they were about me. But here's the thing. These ideas aren't meant to make you feel bad. They're meant to set you free. The moment you stop resisting, the moment you start looking at your inner truth instead of blaming the outside world, your entire perspective shifts. In this video, we'll break down 3 Jungian truths that might piss you off at first, but if you let them, they'll change your life. Ready to face what's been holding you back? Let's dive in. The power of acceptance. What you resist persists. Have you ever noticed that the more you try to push something away, the stronger it seems to come back? Carl Jung famously said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." When we deny our fears, suppressed emotions, or past traumas, they don't simply vanish. They go underground into the unconscious and influence our lives from the shadows. That anxiety you keep ignoring, it starts appearing in your relationships, work, and decision-making, shaping your life in ways you don't even realize. The paradox is this: the only way to free yourself from something is to face it head-on. But resistance is sneaky. It disguises itself as avoidance, distraction, or even over-rationalization. People run from their inner truth, telling themselves, "I'm fine," while their emotional triggers keep proving otherwise. Ever wondered why the same issues seem to repeat in your life? That's because unprocessed emotions and subconscious patterns demand attention. The moment you accept what is, rather than fighting it, you stop feeding it energy. Psychological healing begins the second you stop running. True self-awareness means recognizing that resistance doesn't make problems disappear. It just buries them deeper. So, how do you practice acceptance? Start by observing your emotional triggers instead of reacting to them. If someone's words ignite anger in you, ask yourself, what part of me feels attacked? If a situation creates fear, sit with it instead of numbing it with distractions. Journaling, meditation, and deep self-reflection are powerful tools for this. Once you stop resisting, you create space for transformation. And suddenly, you realize something profound. Life isn't happening to you, it's reflecting you. Which leads us to our next point. How the world around you is a mirror of your inner self. Life is a mirror. We meet ourselves in others. Ever noticed how certain people trigger you instantly? Maybe it's someone's arrogance, someone else's neediness, or a person who just rubs you the wrong way. Carl Jung would tell you, it's not about them, it's about you. Life has a way of acting as a mirror, reflecting back the parts of ourselves we haven't fully accepted. The qualities we admire in others, they exist within us. The traits we despise, they do too, just buried in our unconscious mind. This is the mirror effect, and it's one of the most powerful tools for self-discovery if you're willing to use it. This isn't about blame, it's about awareness. If you constantly attract controlling people, ask yourself, where in my life am I afraid to take control? If you resent those who seek attention, could it be that you've repressed your own need to be seen? The world is giving you clues, revealing your shadow through relational dynamics. Instead of seeing others as separate from you, start seeing them as reflections of suppressed emotions and unconscious desires. Every frustrating interaction is an invitation for psychological healing, if you're willing to look beyond the surface. So, how do you apply this? The next time someone triggers you, pause. Instead of reacting, ask, what is this moment teaching me about myself? If you journal about your strongest reactions to people, patterns will emerge. You'll begin to see how much of your internal conflict is projected outward. Once you accept this, you stop playing the victim of life and start taking ownership of your personal growth. But this concept goes even deeper because what we reject in ourselves doesn't just show up in relationships. It manifests as real-life events, forcing us to confront what we've ignored. The shadow and projection. Whatever is rejected appears as an event. Life has a way of forcing us to confront what we refuse to see. Carl Jung believed that anything we reject internally doesn't just disappear. It shows up externally, manifesting as repeated life situations, challenges, or conflicts. This is projection in action. If you've ever wondered why you keep attracting the same type of toxic relationships, frustrating work environments, or emotional struggles, it's not just bad luck. It's your unconscious mind trying to bring your attention to something you've suppressed. The shadow doesn't stay hidden forever. It finds a way to be seen. The frustrating part? Most people don't realize they're doing this. They blame external circumstances, unaware that their internal conflicts are shaping their outer reality. A person with deep-seated abandonment fears may unconsciously push people away, creating the very rejection they fear. Someone who resents authority may repeatedly end up in jobs with controlling bosses. The more something triggers discomfort, the stronger the invitation for self-awareness and psychological healing. Until you own your shadow, it will continue to appear in your world, just wearing different disguises. So, how do you break free? Start by noticing where patterns repeat in your life. If a specific problem keeps resurfacing, ask yourself, what part of me is responsible for this dynamic? This isn't about self-blame, it's about self-discovery. Journaling, dream analysis, and shadow work exercises can help reveal the deeper subconscious patterns at play. The moment you recognize the lesson behind the event, you stop attracting the same experience. But to do this, you must be willing to embrace discomfort, because growth only happens when we step beyond what feels safe. The role of discomfort in growth. Growth isn't supposed to feel comfortable. If it does, it's probably not real transformation. Carl Jung understood that true self-discovery requires facing what we'd rather avoid: our fears, suppressed emotions, and unresolved conflicts. The mind craves psychological wholeness, but the ego clings to the familiar, even if it's painful. This is why people stay in toxic relationships, unfulfilling jobs, and repetitive emotional cycles. They mistake comfort for safety, not realizing that discomfort is often the signpost of personal growth. The question isn't whether you'll experience discomfort, it's whether you'll lean into it or run from it. Think about the moments in your life that shaped you the most. Were they the easy, predictable times? Or were they the ones where you were forced to confront your inner truth? Growth happens when we allow discomfort to reveal what's beneath it. Anxiety, fear, anger. These are not obstacles to avoid, but signals to explore. If something makes you deeply uncomfortable, there's a reason. Maybe it's a part of yourself you've rejected. Maybe it's a truth you've refused to acknowledge. The key is to stop numbing discomfort with distractions and start listening to what it's trying to teach you. So how do you work with discomfort instead of against it? First, stop labeling it as negative. Instead of saying, I feel anxious, reframe it as, something in me is trying to get my attention. Second, use tools like mindfulness, breath work, and self-reflection to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. Finally, take small actions toward what scares you. Fear thrives in avoidance, but when confronted, it loses its power. The more you lean into discomfort, the more resilient and self-aware you become. And as you embrace this, something shifts. You start moving toward true integration, where inner and outer alignment become one. Integration as the path to freedom. Carl Jung believed that true freedom isn't found in escaping pain or avoiding our shadow. It's found in integration. This means bringing together the fragmented parts of ourselves, both light and dark, and accepting them as part of our whole being. Many people think freedom means having no problems, but in reality, it means having the self-awareness to no longer be ruled by unconscious fears, suppressed emotions, and old conditioning. When you stop rejecting parts of yourself, you stop needing life to constantly reflect them back at you through external struggles. Integration leads to psychological wholeness. But integration isn't just an abstract idea, it's a daily practice. Every time you recognize a trigger and choose to reflect instead of react, you're integrating. Every time you acknowledge an uncomfortable emotion instead of suppressing it, you're moving towards self-acceptance. Every time you stop blaming external circumstances and take responsibility for your inner truth, you reclaim your power. Personal growth isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming authentic. And authenticity isn't about being liked, it's about being whole. Once you integrate your unconscious patterns, life stops feeling like a battle and starts feeling like an unfolding path. So, what does this look like in practice? It means embracing self-exploration, using tools like shadow work, journaling, and mindfulness to uncover and integrate hidden parts of yourself. It means being honest about your repressed desires, inner conflicts, and emotional wounds. And most importantly, it means realizing that nothing outside of you can give you the freedom you're looking for. It has to come from within. The deeper you go, the more you realize that your unconscious mind holds the key to your liberation. And once you see this truth, there's no going back. Now that you've seen how these Carl Jung quotes can shake your reality, the real question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? It's easy to hear a profound truth and nod along, but true transformation only happens when you apply it. Will you keep resisting what life is trying to show you? Or will you start looking at your emotional triggers, projections, and unconscious fears as opportunities for self-discovery? Because the truth is, the more you run from yourself, the more life will reflect back what you refuse to see. Take a moment to reflect. What's one thing in your life that keeps repeating? What emotion, situation, or pattern seems to follow you no matter how much you try to avoid it? That's where your work is. That's where your greatest growth is hiding. The discomfort you feel when facing these truths isn't a punishment, it's an invitation. And those who dare to step into it find something most people never do: freedom from their unconscious conditioning. So, what's stopping you from diving in? If this resonated with you, don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another life-changing insight. And tell me in the comments, which one of these quotes hit you the hardest? Let's start a conversation and challenge each other to see beyond our projections and resistance. Because the truth is, once you start seeing through these patterns, you can't go back. And that's when real psychological wholeness begins.